The village of Eastern Meadow was steeped in poverty, perpetually overshadowed by the gray stone mansion of Mr. Thorne, the local rich landlord. Every coin earned, every inch of ground was tainted by the bitter taste of usury and exploitation. Mark, once a good-looking and honest young man, carried the generational burden of a crushing debt left by his parents. His only solace was Fay, his wife, as gentle and pure as the full moon. Yet her light was insufficient to ward off the darkness of ambition that was beginning to blossom in his soul. When the old landlord promised him a life of idle luxury if he would abandon Fay, Mark simply took a deeper gulp of cheap liquor. The debt had warped his morals, and the alcohol had made him forget his vows under the moonlight. The fatal blow came when Thora, Mr. Thorne's crude, ugly, and spiteful daughter, trapped Mark in a drunken haze. Thora became pregnant, and the gate to power swung wide open. Mark returned home, looking at Fay with the eyes of a complete stranger. "You can't give me an heir? You can't help me escape this life of a beast of burden? You are useless," Mark spat. His words cut like knives, but the malice did not stop there. Thora, in her crazed jealousy, wanted Fay permanently eliminated. She hired 4 notorious local thugs. That night, Thora drugged Mark into a deep stupor, gave the men money, and provided instructions. In the cold leaf-thatched hut, Mark became the young master of the Thorne estate, having quickly administered rat poison to his father-in-law's herbal soup, sending the old landlord to a gruesome death of convulsions and black vomiting. But from that moment on, peace eternally abandoned him. The first death, remorse, and self-mutilation. The first thug, the most brutal of the group, began to suffer from a strange fever. He trembled not from cold, but from an unnamed terror. In his damp, dark shed, every night he heard the sound of bare feet shuffling and a soft whisper. "How could you be so cruel, my friend?" He looked in the mirror and saw his own image overlaid with a white, weeping face, eyes filled with tears and soil. He saw bruises on his own body, identical to those he had inflicted upon Fay. He could not bear the psychological torture. One stormy night, in his delirium, he believed Fay's ghost was gripping his eyes. He grabbed a hammer, snashing his own hands and legs, desperate to free himself from the invisible grasp. Finally, he shrieked in horror, then used a rope to tightly strangle himself while staring fixedly at a dark corner where he swore Fay was smiling. The next morning, his corpse dangled from the rafters, his face contorted in ultimate terror. The second and third deaths, physical vengeance. Thora gave birth during a howling storm. The midwife paled, trembling as she held the infant. The boy, he suffocated inside his mother, sir. His head, it's the color of dirt. Mark, having lost his heir, became monstrously cruel. He beat Thora and drove her out of the mansion. Thora, insane and consumed by hatred, wandered like a phantom. One night, she unknowingly stumbled upon the spot of Fay's unmarked grave. Suddenly, a fierce gale whipped up. Fay materialized. "You wanted the earth? I give you the earth. You wanted me to suffer? You shall." The successive gruesome deaths of his associates drove Mark to the brink of insanity. He saw Fay everywhere, in his wine glass, in the darkness, and most intensely in the solitude of the grand mansion. On his final night,
Mark lay on the luxurious bed, but his body felt icy and heavy. He heard the sound of the earth crackling beneath the floorboards. Then came an overwhelming sensation of cold, wetness, and the smell of clay and death enveloping him. He opened his eyes and saw Faye lying beside him, her eyes hollow, filled with soil, her face twisted in a morbid smile. "You said you loved me. Why did you bury me? Now I've come to hold you." Mark screamed, thrashing wildly, but he felt his body constricted by invisible roots and tendrils of earth. The servants rushing in only saw Mark tearing at his own clothes, scratching his skin in a frenzied madness. He believed Faye was physically clinging to him, her grasp sinking deep into his flesh. He stumbled to the kitchen, grabbing a meat cleaver. "I have to cut it off! Cut this filthy thing away!" To the horrified screams of his servants, Mark brought the cleaver down, severing